Can opposition be beneficial? More than 2.5 millennium ago, the prophet Lehi said, "For it must needs be..." Oh, back up one. Maybe I skipped one here. Okay, let's go ahead and read, and I'll read what Lehi's statement is, or maybe I got one out of order. "For it must needs be that there is an opposition to all things. If not so, righteousness could not be brought to pass. Neither wickedness, neither holiness, nor misery, neither good nor bad." Now, while we hold no love for the devil, Satan and evil are necessary for man's free agency and hence progression. We read that in DMC 2939. As Lehi explains, without opposition, there would be no need for mankind's creation. Lack of opposition, he notes, must needs destroy the wisdom of God and his eternal purposes, and also the power and the mercy and the justice of God. In a strange but very real way, Satan is part of the gospel plan. If it were not for Satan, Adam and Eve would not have progressed with their fall in the garden. If not for Satan, we would not have the opportunity to choose righteousness and happiness over wickedness and misery. Although we are in a constant battle with Satan, and we should avoid his temptations like the plague, he is a necessary evil to help us move forward. Which brings us to the purpose of my paper, our relationship with anti-Mormons and other LDS critics. And I don't mean to imply that all critics are satanic or evil, although some of them I think fit that bill. But rather, that opposition appears to be necessary for intellectual as well as spiritual growth. If not for the critics, some of the fascinating LDS scholarly studies may not have been noticed. Mormon critics have actually strengthened LDS scholarship. Brigham Young said, "Every time you kick Mormonism, you kick it upstairs. You never kick it downstairs. The Lord Almighty so orders it." Now, just as it would be irresponsible to recommend yielding to Satan so that growth can be gained in overcoming temptation, it would likewise be irresponsible to encourage anti-Mormonism to promote LDS scholarship. Ezra Taft Benson once said, "We are far removed from the days of our forefathers, who were persecuted for their peculiar beliefs. Some of us seem to want to share their reward, but are oftentimes afraid to stand up for the principles that are controversial in our generation. We need not solicit persecution, but neither should we remain silent in the presence of overwhelming evils, for this makes cowards of men." Now, Satan's opposition can bring spiritual death. It can also, however, bring spiritual strength. Likewise, detractors have brought spiritual blindness to Latter-day Saints and investigators, but critics have also enhanced our understanding of Mormon issues and scriptures. Occasionally, even the critics are right and point out details from a different perspective, which in turn have launched new LDS studies. And often, when tackling difficult issues, positions are clarified, new insights are gleaned, new perspectives are identified, and new appreciations are gained. As John Sorensen explained, the critics often, quote, push LDS scholars to phrase in fuller, clearer, and better documented ways what we have already known and said, briefly and incompletely. Likewise, Brigham Young once said, "Let us alone, and we will send elders to the uttermost parts of the earth, and gather out Israel, wherever they are. And if you persecute us, we will do it the quicker, because we are naturally dull when let alone, and are disposed to take a little sleep, a little slumber, and a little rest. If you let us alone, we will do it a little more leisurely. But if you persecute us, we will sit up nights to preach the gospel." At another time, he said, "Every time they persecute and try to overcome his people, they elevate us and weaken their own hands and strengthen the hands and the arms of his people. And every time they undertake to lessen our numbers, they increase it. Righteousness and power with God increase in his people in proportion as the devil struggles to destroy it." I've gathered a list of just a few of the areas in which the critics have helped LDS scholarship. Now, in the interest of time, I'll try to focus on a couple of them, and if we have a little time, I'll try to get on some of the less noticeable ones. Okay, first is Book of Mormon studies. Now, it's important to understand that for the major part of the church history, the Book of Mormon was not really received as for the attention of the object of study. Until recently, the main focus of the Book of Mormon has been as aspect as a vehicle through which personal revelation could be gained, rather than a text which should be studied for spiritual and intellectual insights. With the exception of a few notable LDS intellects, the church as a whole did not devote a lot of attention to a real study of the Book of Mormon until recently. BYU, for example, didn't require students to study the Book of Mormon until 1961. And the church Sunday school curriculum didn't include the Book of Mormon's course study until 1972. Some of the critics therefore occasionally noticed things before the saints did. Boy, I got a few of these out of order. Go ahead and back up again. Let's try that one more time. Now, let's back up. We'll come back to that one here. Okay, first one is anachronisms. And anachronisms and absurdities. And when I think of the word anachronisms, I have to think of what John Twetness mentioned yesterday about waiving the rents. That's always going to stick in my mind now. Among the earliest and most notable early anti-Mormons, we find Methodist minister Leroy Sunderland, who in 1838 wrote a book attempting to discredit Mormonism. He noted what he believed to be grammatical errors, plagiarisms, absurdities, and such as records being engraved on brass plates. And in 1857, former Mormon John Hyde wrote an anti-Mormon book wherein he expressed amusement with a number of Book of Mormon items. His critique is laced with descriptive words such as contradict, pretends, imposture, inconsistency, ridiculous, and ignorant. Among the many items which Hyde saw as sure, quote, proof of imposture, end quote, will be included the horse, elephant, sheep, swine, Nephi's compass, and other absurdities like Nephi shipbuilding and temple building, Jaredite barges, the brother Jared's shining stones, and Lehi's odd habit of renaming rivers and valleys. Hyde criticized the Book of Mormon for copying King James Bible, quote, verbatim, as well as the use of the words church, cemetery, and glass. In his chapter dedicated to analyzing the Book of Mormon, he concludes, the Book of Mormon consists of two parts. One is stolen and the other original. Its copied parts consist of plagiarisms culled from the commonest books, collected without knowledge and combined without skill. Its original part is a mass of contradictions and miracles sublimed into absurdities. To attempt to palm the whole on human credulity as a revelation from God is folly and fraud. Now, many LDS critics have not really moved beyond Hyde's arguments. Whereas LDS scholarship has grown by leaps and bounds. Scholars have dealt with virtually all of these accusations of Hyde's and have demonstrated that the Book of Mormon is supposedly anachronistic and absurd items are neither anachronistic nor absurd. In many cases, the arguments have backfired and turned from impugning the Book of Mormon to supporting the Book of Mormon. Last year's Fair Conference, again, you might remember Matt Roper's paper, Boomerang Hits in the Book of Mormon. And he discussed many of the ways in which the Book of Mormon has been vindicated against the critics and actually strengthened because of the Nephite scripture as it described very real things which were contrary to what most informed people of Joseph Smith's day believed. A more recent charge of anachronistic language in the Book of Mormon is use of the term tenths, when tenths were supposedly not known in Book of Mormon lands and times. This accusation prompted John Sorensen to do a little in-depth homework, which he detailed in an issue of Farm's Review of Books. I quote, "In the course of my response, I looked up and spelled out a certain amount of new information. New in the sense that it's not having been utilized in any previous discussions of the Book of Mormon about the occurrence of tenths in pre-Hispanic Mesoamerica. So my rebuttal to the critic in the article made a substantive, though minor, contribution to Book of Mormon scholarship on the point of tenths. Now, in 1887, Reverend M.T. Lamb, a Baptist minister, wrote an anti-Mormon book decrying not only what he saw as anachronisms, such as wheat and barley, iron and steel, and records on gold plates, but what he also saw as incongruities in the saints' perception of Book of Mormon lands and the realities of population growth and travel distances. In 1909, B.H. Roberts took notice of the critics and took measures to find answers. He wrote a 3-volume work entitled A New Witness for God, which dealt directly with some of the anti-Mormon charges of the day. Okay, geography. For the most of the Church's history, the Latter-day Saints have generally believed in what's been called the hemispheric model of the Book of Mormon, which would have included North America, South America, Panama Canal being the narrow neck of the land. Such a view suggested the Nephites were exterminated in upstate New York. A number of Latter-day Saints pointed to many Indian artifacts in New York as evidence for the Nephite extermination. Critics like Lamb and later others questioned travel distances and population sizes necessary for a hemispheric model. The critics also charged the Book of Mormon could not be true, based on the popular LDS belief that all American Indians were descendants of Lamanites, and we'll get to more of this later. In New Witness, Roberts referred to Lamb's criticism of the Book of Mormon's supposed rapid population growth, as well as problems regarding long-distance travel within a hemispheric model of the Book of Mormon. While Roberts continued to favor a hemispheric model, he acknowledged some validity to this criticism and recognized the possibility for a limited geography for the Book of Mormon. While there's some debate of whether or not Lamb influenced Roberts, who in turn influenced latter